Chief Armstrong, first of all, congratulations. Yesterday, such a big moment for you. Tell me about what it was like emotionally being sworn in as the new police chief here in Oakland, your hometown.
It was an amazing moment, a moment that I had been dreaming about for many years. It was surreal, and to have my mother there, to be able to share that moment with her was something that I couldn't have dreamed of. And so I'm just, I'm still riding on cloud nine, and so when you grow up in a city and you walk to school every day and you understand the struggles that we face in some communities, to be able to attain this job is just really important to me and important to my community. So I'm humbled and I'm thankful.
And to have your daughters there as well.
Yeah, having my children fly in from college to see and spend this moment with me, to see their excitement and their appreciation for all of the work and the sacrifices that I've made, understanding the time that I've even missed with them in order to reach this goal. It was really a happy day for me.
You know, Mayor Libby Schaaf said that this job as the police chief here in Oakland is the hardest, toughest job in America.
Yeah.
Why take on this responsibility?
Well, I came into this job 22 years ago because I believed that I could make a change in the Oakland Police Department. I believed that I could help be a bridge between the police department and the community. And so for me, this is sort of the maturation of a dream, a reason why I came into law enforcement. And so this moment for me is something that I've wanted, it's something that I have worked towards, but it's also an opportunity to change. I believe yesterday the change started. It started with me saying to my community that you have an Oaklander in the building. You have somebody that cares about his community at the top of this organization. And you have somebody that's going to work day in and day out to help make this community safer.
You talk about change and you care about this community. You are from here. You went to McClymonds High School. You talk about change. Part of the problem here in Oakland is the crime, the rising stats of homicides, even this year alone in January. You say that you want to make it a safer city. How do you do that?
I think the department has already shown that our ceasefire strategy works. We had 5-year declines in homicides. The COVID pandemic had a tremendous impact on our ability to implement our ceasefire strategy like we had done previously. It centers around direct communication, the ability to communicate with young men at the highest risk in a respectful manner, being able to offer support and resources to young men that we know are involved in violent crime and give them other options. The COVID pandemic didn't allow us to do that. We have to become creative, work with our Department of Violence Prevention to come up with different ways in which we can reach those involved in violence. But also, there needs to be a clear message from me that the violence will not be tolerated and that we will apprehend those responsible for it. And so it's a two-pronged effect, and we're going to continue to be focused on those committing violence in our community, that if you shoot a gun in our community, there is going to be a response. My commitment to this community is that Oakland needs to be safe. And that means that for those that want to commit violent acts in our community, they need to understand that there is going to be consequences.
Chief, you've been with the department for roughly 2 decades now. It's well documented, some of the problems within the Oakland Police Department, the sex scandal from a few years ago. You have social media posts that are suspect, internal investigations going on into that, as well as the Ryder scandal from the early 2000s. How do you change the culture within Oakland Police?
I know that there's challenges that exist in this police department. I've been very clear with my command staff. I made sweeping changes at the executive level yesterday, my first day in office, to put a command staff in place that I believe will help me drive the cultural change that we need. It started yesterday. Officers are clear about who I am and what I've been about my entire career, and that's about treating our community with dignity and respect, being professionals both on and off duty 24 hours a day. And for those that are involved in behavior like that, they will not be welcome here at the Oakland Police Department. And that message has been conveyed to everyone.
How do you implement all these changes? How do you change the culture? How do you reduce the crime here in the city, the violent crime, the homicides, when you have a city council and other outside forces, even in the city and outside of the city, trying to slash the police budget, some wanting to slash the budget by half? How do you do that?
I think the conversation around defunding or reimagining policing has to be centered in the safety of our community. When you make cuts, there are going to be impacts. Less services, less officers on the streets, slower responses to crime, less traffic enforcement. We as a city have to figure out what we're okay with. I will say that I believe that the most important thing is protecting our community so that every citizen feels safe, every resident in our community feels safe, every visitor in our community feels safe. And so that's my goal. Whatever cuts we have, my question to the council and to whoever is, what is going to be the impact? Does it make us safer? There are situations where gun and badge is not appropriate. We're talking about mental health calls, nonviolent mental health calls. Maybe you don't need an officer to respond to those. Maybe you can have a mental health services provider respond to those calls, or some type of community-based organization. When we're talking about our unsheltered population, maybe you don't need an officer to respond to a nonviolent call to the unhoused community. Maybe that could be provided by some other community service. But when it comes to violent crime, when it comes to homicides, shootings, robberies, we need to be able to respond. We need to have adequate resources to be able to prevent these crimes from happening. And we need to be sending a message to our community that we're going to, as a police department and as a city, to invest in your safety.
Last question. You've got 2 internal investigations going on, some social media posts about the Capitol takeover, Instagram posts, some saying that they're racist posts about police reforms. I know that there are internal investigations going on, but what can you tell us about those right now?
I can tell you that those thorough investigations are moving forward. We have an independent investigator that's been hired to also investigate it. We're going to look at every officer that was involved in this behavior, and we will hold officers accountable. What I can be clear about is that if you engaged in that type of behavior, or you support white supremacist ideology or sexist or homophobic ideas, you will not be welcome in the Oakland Police Department.
I have to ask you one more question, please, Chief. The compliance director and monitor, Robert Warshaw, the list of reforms is long. How do you tackle this issue that has essentially plagued the Oakland Police Department for the last 17 years?
I think you be very focused and intentional. And one of the things that I plan to do is stand up a Bureau of Risk Management that works solely on compliance with the negotiated settlement agreement. I don't believe we're that far off from full compliance. I think with a focused effort, with accountability at the command level, I think we can make compliance a reality for this department in the near future. So I'm very optimistic.
Since we're at 9:30 right now, one more question about the protests last summer. One last question since we're at 9:30. I saw the clock. One last.
That's it.
All right. Paul, thank you. Chief, thank you,
Hello,
and
thank
congratulations.
you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Best of luck to you.
I appreciate
Truly.
it. Tough job, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, got more questions. Tough job.
I was counting, Paul. It was at 9:30.
I was counting too.
What did your clock say?
It said past due.
I got both.
congratulate.
let me